Salut copains, aujourd'hui vidéo un peu particulière, je vais te proposer de regarder l'interview de Firor. Firor, c'est tout simplement le directeur de TESO, c'est le big boss, c'est le directeur de Zenimax. Et donc il y a une interview qui a été faite par le community manager français. Donc c'est une exclusivité francophone, il n'y a pas eu d'autres interviews de Firor depuis un petit moment. Il a demandé à la communauté sur Twitter, j'ai aussi demandé sur mon Discord et autres. Et il a demandé à la communauté de poser des questions. Voilà, quelles questions vous poseriez au directeur de TESO? Et donc, il a fait une petite sélection et il a fait une interview avec lui. Donc, c'est en anglais, mais il y a les sous-titres en français. Et en fait, cette interview a été présentée lors de l'émission qu'on a faite pour le petit débrief après le live d'annonce de la prochaine extension iHile. Et je me suis dit, ça pourrait être intéressant de donner un peu de visibilité à cette interview parce que je la trouve vraiment intéressante. Pour une fois, pardon de dire ça, mais vraiment il y a des questions très ciblées, très intéressantes, et je voulais vous montrer tout ça. Ça parle de cross-platform, de tout un tas de petits trucs, vous allez voir. Alors vous n'allez pas forcément aimer toutes les réponses, mais au moins, il faut dire un truc, c'est que au moins on a des réponses, il y a de la communication, et c'est quand même une chose à souligner. Du coup, je vais vous laisser regarder cette petite session de questions-réponses.
So my role at ZeniMax Online is I'm the studio director. Back in 2007, I founded the studio along with a lot of help from Bethesda to make the Elder Scrolls Online. So I was the game director of ESO for many years, and now I'm the studio director because we have some other things going on that we're not talking about right now. So generally, I'm in charge of making sure the studio is running and working with Rich Lambert and his team to make sure that ESO is as awesome as it can be. So when it comes to questions about housing items, the number of them and the quality of them, I just need to remind everyone that ESO runs on an extraordinarily wide variety of devices. And right now we still support the Xbox One and the PS4, which in 2013 were fantastic consoles, but now they're, of course, approaching 9 or 10 years old. So everything that we add to ESO, you need to understand that we need to add it on all platforms. So sometimes that limits us, and housing is one of those areas just where how the game works. We need to make sure that we don't overpower those devices. So that's why we're making those decisions. And some other decisions in game too are because we need to make sure that players have a good experience on all supported platforms. Well, yeah, as far as Planes of Oblivion go, obviously the base game of ESO has Cold Harbor, which was the first time that was seen in an Elder Scrolls game. And we've added pockets here and there of different Planes of Oblivion in the Mages Guild storyline, and of course we had little pockets of the Deadlands even in the base game in a couple of places. So we love to go out and explore the Daedric Realms when the story warrants it, and yeah, we'll keep doing that. Obviously, we had a lot of the Deadlands in last year's content. And we introduced some new areas as well. So expect to see that in the future. We might make some bigger things based on it, but we'll definitely have different pockets of Oblivion content because it's really cool to show players kind of the side of the IP that isn't based solely in Tamriel. So we'll keep doing that. Yeah. So the cross-platform question. It comes up a lot. Remember that ESO launched in 2014 and on consoles in 2015, so the world was a lot different back then technically, and ESO was architected to not be cross-platform. So the answer to that is we could probably do it someday, but there are a lot of underpinnings that would have to change in the way that we do characters and guilds and so forth. But now many games are doing crossplay, and we see that. And I'm not going to promise anything, but it's something we could do under the right circumstances, but we're a long way from that right now. Yeah, the spellcrafting question comes up a lot too. Obviously, that's because in 2014, I think at QuakeCon, we gave a presentation that showed some of our thinking about how a spellcrafting system would work. Remember, that was caveated with a bunch of statements around things like, we don't know if we're going to do this. This is just an idea. So we still have that idea, but we have no plans right now to do spellcrafting. I think we've hit a really good cadence of systems that we've added to ESO, and we're very happy with what we've done. It is still on the list of things that maybe we'll go back and look at someday, but there's no plans right now. Yeah, so solo arenas and arenas in general, if you notice, we do a pretty regular cadence of different group functions over the course of a year or many years. Like we do 2 dungeon DLCs for co-op. We do an arena, a group arena, or a solo arena every couple of years. So we know players love Vatrasan Hollows, and definitely, I think, even though ESO is at heart a multiplayer game, sometimes it's just a lot of fun to go in and have a solo challenge. And we know that lots of players enjoy that. So, we don't have one on the roadmap right now for the updates that are coming in the next while, but we'll do one eventually. We haven't done that because we have it on console. Obviously, many of you French players know that who play on console. But we didn't put it on PC because most people that would want to do voice chat on PC already use Discord or some other voice chat system. And we didn't want to implement a system like that if many people weren't going to use it, because then you would have the situation where some people would use the in-game system and some people would use the system they use in all their other games, which would be an external solution. So we just decided to make PC a bring your own voice chat system type of game, and we're pretty happy with that. Yeah, we're very excited about the companions that we're introducing in High Isle. I think in general, players love companions. I know from all the other Bethesda games, they're very popular, and certainly Miri and Bastion were very, very popular when we introduced them last year. We will continue to add new companions in High Isle. We're going to add Ember and Isabel. We can go into the specifics of that, but the general strategy is we'll keep adding new companions over time, and each will come with their own backstory and quest and story. And we want to really make it not only a system that can help you if you want to play solo in the game, but also something that just provides some fun with the quests and getting to know your new companion and what they like and what they don't like. And you can expect us to keep adding them over time. Our priorities for ESO right now is to keep doing what we've been doing because it's working. It's making sure that we add lots of new and fun content every year and address long-standing problems while we do that, and also introduce new systems that players can interact with. So if you look at over the last couple of years, we've added antiquities, companions. We really buffed out our event system, so events are now happening more often with more and disparate rewards. So if you think about it that way, what we're focusing on is making ESO more horizontal, where we add more systems for players to interact with, not necessarily making newer, deeper ones, but just giving players more things to do when they log in. So that's new stories, which we do obviously very well. Our storytelling is probably the one of the best features of ESO, and the fact that we can put so much new content in the game so quickly. But don't forget these new horizontal systems, because you'll see them, and now ESO has a ton of them. I mean, fishing, Thieves Guild quests, Dark Brotherhood quests, and Antiquities companions, events. I'm missing housing. I mean, I'm missing a bunch of them even now. But if you see, over time, we've managed to make the game more and more virtual world-like, where you don't just jump in and fight monsters. You can jump in and do lots of other stuff like fish. And so we're really, really interested in that aspect of the game and giving players a disparate set of activities to do, not just jump in and do quests and stuff like that. So If you look at our priorities, that's what we're doing, is we're making the game broader over time, welcoming in new players all the time. We still, even now, going into our 8th year, still have millions and millions of new players every year. So that we just want to make the game as welcoming as possible for them, but give long-term players of the game, make sure they have enough co-op and solo content to do. And of course, in the long term, and I talked about this in a letter to the community just a couple weeks ago, go back and look at PvP performance and making sure that meets the need of the community there. We will definitely do more varied, fun, interesting wandering bosses like we did in Deadlands. That concept, of course, came from Imperial City, where we had very high level group bosses just wandering around the Imperial sewers. So we took that concept and put it into Deadlands, and it was very, very popular. So we'll keep exploring cool and fun things to do with that. For players who are talking about remaking the graphics of the game, obviously we did that last year in our next-gen console update. So if you play on the PS5 or the Xbox One X or S, you'll see that we added a lot of graphical upgrades. Many of those are over on PC as well. So we need to make sure that the game runs on all of our supported platforms, which includes PS4 and Xbox One. So we're limited in what we can do there in some ways. But in general, we always want to make sure the game looks as good as it can. And if that means going back and in a targeted fashion, making some things look better if we can, we'll probably end up doing that. But it's not going to be a major overhaul. It'll probably be a more targeted thing, like make terrain look better, or make a specific textures that look good in 2013 but don't look good now. We might end up doing things like that, but we're not going to do a major overhaul. As far as storylines go, we really did the Daedric Prince invading Tamriel and taking over. We've done that variation on the story a number of times. So now's the time to go back to a more Daggerfall, if you played the Elder Scrolls 2, political intrigue type of storyline. We're going to tell that story this year, and we have plans for what's coming up next year and the year after already. So we're not going to spoil any of next year's content, but this year is going to be very much a more traditional Elder Scrolls story. And we're going to look around and just see what the right story to tell is at the right time after that. So we have some cool ideas, and we will work on them when the time is right. Yeah, we'll definitely add battlegrounds in the future. We don't have any plans like on the roadmap right now, but that's certainly something that we'll be doing in the future. Well, I'd say it's not a fear that will fill Tamriel's map completely. It's a goal. So we have lots more area to go. But if you notice, we're also exploring lands off of Tamriel as well. Like this year, High Isle is not on Tamriel. It's a couple of islands that are off the coast. And of course, there's the Oblivion plains that we can go to. So just between what's left on Tamriel plus islands are near Tamriel, plus Oblivion, we have plenty of places and stories to tell for years to come. Well, we are approaching, I think, almost 1 year since the Microsoft acquisition went through, and I just want to say it's a pleasure working with them. Nothing really has changed on our side. They know and respect what we're doing on ESO and kind of our cadence and how we roll out content to players, and so it's been fantastic working with them. They're very interested in what we're doing, and there's a lot of talk between the different studios that are in the Xbox Game Studio family just about best practices and how we do things and how they do things. But it's been great overall. We're thrilled to be part of the Xbox gaming group, and it couldn't have gone any better. So as all of you co-op dungeon runners in ESO know, the newer dungeons are different than the original ones, and of course people are asking us to update the original mechanics to make them as cool and as challenging as the newer ones. But of course, remember that new players are entering the game every day, and they also need to start with dungeons that aren't quite so challenging. So just remember that we'll keep adding new dungeons, and they'll be challenging, and there'll be hard modes and so forth. But don't forget that there are new players also, and they need to learn how all these cool mechanics work. And the best way to do that is to have them go through the easier dungeons first and learn the ropes, and then go through and do more and more challenging dungeons, just like the veteran players did over time. So the greatest challenge for the High Isle chapter, I think, was how to tell this cool story about the Bretons in an area that is not currently in the Breton area of the game. So we do have some lore references to the Citrus Isles and to High Isle, and we're using that to tell kind of a cool story of the politics and history and lore of the Bretons. But making all of that work in the confines with understanding that we already have a vast amount of Breton and Daggerfall Covenant areas in the game. We just had to be very careful how we did that. And I think we did a really good job of introducing Breton content in an area kind of off of Tamriel. But it was a challenge to come up with the right look and feel. I think as long as we can fit new areas of the game into the existing time and structure of Tamriel in our era, which is the Three Banners War, we'll be able to do that. Generally, that doesn't mean we introduce any new things that aren't part of the three alliances and areas that they control. So we're a little bit limited in that sense, but that's still a lot of territory to cover. So I think, and I touched on this in a previous answer, that if you look at the map of Tamriel and then you think about the islands that are close to Tamriel around it that are under the control of the alliances, and think about Plains of Oblivion, we have a lot of places to explore over the next many, many years. So this chapter actually is definitely the story revolves around the Three Banners War in some way. I don't want to spoil any of the story. You're going to have to play through it. But if you see, you saw the global reveal show and you saw the trailer and you know that the three alliances are involved in this somehow. But we're going to let players play through this and kind of experience the story of what is happening in the war and outside groups trying to influence what the war is, and I'll leave it at that. Well, in many ways, Elder Scrolls Online, when we started it in 2007, it exists to tell the story of Tamriel in the Second Era at this time, when there wasn't a lot of lore about what was happening, and we've been very, very successful with that. The whole idea of the Three Banners War, of no one controlling the Ruby Throne, so no real emperor. All of that, I think, has been very successful, and we're very happy to have provided that kind of depth of what happened right before the rise of Tiber Septim. So we're very happy about that, and we're super happy to be able to go to some other territory that hasn't been discovered or hasn't been explored in other Elder Scrolls games, like Murkmire and elsewhere. And we've done a lot of good work kind of fleshing out the overall lore of the IP in ways that I think are very interesting and very deep, and we continue to do so. I mean, you're going to learn about the Bretons in High Isle, because even though we have Breton areas, we have High Rock in the game, those areas, a history lesson here, the areas of the Daggerfall Covenant are among the earliest zones that we developed for the game. So we know a lot more about what we want to do with the Bretons and their culture now than we did when we were putting those zones together. So this gives us an interesting opportunity to go back to the lore we introduced at the launch of ESO and kind of augment and make it deeper. So those opportunities are really cool. and it just goes to show what you can do in a long-running, online game of this type, is that you can really focus on lore and depth in one place one year and go back to an area you did before the next year and make it cooler with the stories that you're telling and the Elder Scrolls lore that you're giving to the players. So it's really cool, and we're really, really happy to be working on it. I'd just like to take a minute and acknowledge that the French community is very, very important to ESO. We say this all the time, but it's always true, is that, we make the game, but the community makes it awesome. ESO wouldn't exist without the community in any sense. And the French community has always been there and been super passionate, and we appreciate that every day. So thank you all for being part of ESO.
Et voilà pour cette petite interview. Alors c'était plus une session de questions-réponses, hein. Mais voilà, j'aimerais bien avoir vos retours là-dessus, ce que vous avez apprécié, un peu moins, ce que vous avez pensé de tout ceci. En tout cas, j'espère que la vidéo vous aura plu. Si c'est le cas, laissez un petit pouce content en bas de celle-ci et n'hésitez pas à vous abonner. Et sur ce, je vous dis à très vite. C'était Désastre. Allez, ciao!